Hey everybody, it's Brad with another Floriani Total Control U video for you. And today we are going to be talking about digitizing for Puffy foam. Puffy foam is a trademark of Sulky of America, and there are some other brands out there that make 3D puff embroidery foam. For the most common one to see in a sewing machine store is going to be the Sulky Puffy foam, though. Basically what it is it's a foam that you embroider over, and it allows like a 3D dimensional kind of a look. And you see it on hats a lot of the time, like sports logos and things like that. In order to have a design sew out correctly on puffy foam, there's some things that you need to know about digitizing for it. It's not super hard, but I'm going to show you some designs that were professionally made, some designs that are built into our software that we can look at and see the way that they were digitized. Basically, with foam, the needle on the machine has to cut out the foam. So number one, the design has to be dense, and number two, if there's anywhere that there's an area that the needle is not penetrating, we have to go in and add some stitches so that it cuts around it. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit create a new design here, and when we go into our software, I'm going to bring in just a regular letter that's not made for puffy foam, and I'm going to show you the difference between one that is and one that isn't. So if I just grab, it doesn't really matter what font I do, I'll bring in a capital letter M, and here, let's take a look at this design. So if we were to take this and sew this out onto puffy foam, so what would happen is the stitches perforate the foam, and you just kind of like lay the foam down on the fabric and then embroider right onto it. So everywhere that the satin stitch comes over and makes a little needle penetration, that is going to be cutting the foam. And as you can see, it's going to cut all along the edge of the satin stitch here, all along the top of the satin stitch here. But look at the square end caps. This is just a stitch going from here to here, and there's nothing cutting out this part of the foam. So that wouldn't work very well. I mean, you'd be able to rip it out, by pulling hard enough, but it's going to tear out kind of like in here, and it'll leave this part of the design not looking right. So that's kind of the main thing when you're digitizing with puffy foam, is anywhere that you have like just a square edge like this, there has to be some kind of stitch in there to account for that. And so there's two things that we do. One is we try to taper our edges as much as possible so that things come to a taper rather than coming to like a flat end, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And then also we build in some cutting stitches into the design. So let me show you what it looks like when you have an element that is actually digitized for foam. So if we go in and I scroll down to the 4 fonts that we have in here that have a prefix PF, these 4 fonts, PF 3D Block, 3D Capital Block, 3D Mirror Fill, and 3D Mirror Satin, these fonts are digitized so that you can sew them out on puffy foam without having to do any editing. So if nothing else, you'll be able to know that is what these fonts are for. These fonts are optimized so that you can sew them out onto puffy foam. I'm going to choose this PF3D Capital Block. It is kind of the simplest of the puffy foam fonts that we have here. And I'm going to talk about the other ones too, but I just want to show you kind of the way that this font is made. And if we take a look at the way that this is digitized, first of all, look at these darker segments in here across the top and at the bottoms here. What that is doing is that is creating a little bit of trimming where it's going to have the edge of the satin stitch going along this flat edge. That is the main feature of having a letter that is digitized specifically for puffy foam. That's the main thing. The density that comes in, it comes in at the same density as other satin stitch letters, which I actually bump up a little bit if I'm doing puffy foam. So if we look at our fill tab over here, the standard density when we bring in a font is 0.4. I would probably bump that, make it a little denser than it is by default, just so that we get it to trim a little bit more. But you know, it would still work the other way. I like it to cut a little bit more than the default does. But if we watch this sew out, watch what it does. It comes in and it does essentially a perpendicular satin stitch right at the end of every one of those little flat parts that would be flat in the M. And then it goes and it sews out. And see how that overlaps it as it goes down? You don't see those cutting stitches. They're hidden by the top stitch. But they are what is going to allow this to sew out as a nice puffy letter. That's going to give us that extra 3D kind of a puff effect. Doing that is going to be kind of, you know, one of the main focuses of this video here. So I want to talk about the different puffy fonts that are built in here. This one is just designed for you to take your piece of foam and lay it down in the hoop and then embroider the letters over it. So if I'm going to go in here and type out an entire word, right, and here we'll just view this to fit. And I would just put my piece of puffy foam down and start sewing this out. Now when you do this, you want to use the same color thread as foam. Okay, you don't want to use different colors because you're going to see a little bit of the foam through the stitches no matter what. And it's best to have it be the same color. But if we watch this sew out, we can see it goes and does every letter, and it sews out those cutting stitches if it needs. Now, see, look on the D, it didn't need any cutting stitches because there's no square end, right? So if you've got a design that doesn't need those square ends, then you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, so this font is designed, you just sew it directly right on the puffy foam, okay? But all of the other puffy fonts that are built in here, and if I go down here, I can go to the PF 3D Mirror Fill, say, we'll hit apply here. This font is actually designed so that you would sew out the first color. If we watch this, the first color to go down is the black. And if we watch this sew out, it doesn't put those little cut lines in, right? So this is actually designed to be sewed on the base material, and then once it does this color change, then you go and put the foam on, and the foam is going to be the second color. Now, it does for some reason put some cut lines in on this. I have no idea why. Like why there's this here, I don't know. But I do know that this is designed for you to just sew this out on the material. Then after this color, you're going to put that foam down, and every one of these ones is going to have those cuts in on the edges where it needs them. Okay? And so that allows you to have a kind of like a two-color 3D effect, and it looks quite striking when you use this with puffy foam. And in class, we're going to sew out a font like this, so you can see what that's going to look like. So this one is like a two-stage design, right? It's got like that 3D shadow effect, and there's actually two fonts that are like this. One of them allows you to have a satin stitch be the shadow, and then the other one is a fill stitch as the shadow. So if I go ahead and apply that, this time we've got the stitch that goes down is a fill stitch. I know it looks like a satin stitch still. Well, what's the difference? That looks just like a satin stitch. Hang on. Fill versus satin. Well, darned if they don't both look like satin stitches to me. One would think that this, being called the fill, would be a fill stitch. But if I go one stitch at a time, yeah, that's a satin stitch. So why? I wonder if that's like a bug or something. Because, I mean, that's a satin and that's a fill. What is the difference? One stitch at a time. That's still a satin stitch. Must be a bug. I don't know. Let's see. Is there a difference in the minimum and maximum height for these fonts? You can hit the question mark next to a font and see. Okay, so the maximum height for this is 1.97, and satin, the maximum height is 2.17. Okay, so there's something different. I'll be honest with you, I have no idea why that's like that. These look the same to me. What is the difference? I don't know. Well, that's annoying. But anyway, the other one, the 3D block one here, this one does the same thing, but you sew out the outline. It's not like a drop shadow. It's an outline. So this is kind of the base, and then the puff is going to be the inside. And this is kind of my favorite look. I think this looks the best out of the 4 options that we have built in. Yeah, so that's definitely cool, being able to do this. And this is designed so that you don't have to do what we're gonna do. So if one of these 4 works for what you're doing, you know, if you're fine with like a block look like this, then great. Like this font will work for you to use Puffy foam. But if we wanted a specific font, right, or we wanted to do a shape or something like that. Speaking of shapes, actually, I want to show you something because there's something else that you need to know about. Like, let's say that what we want to do is create, like if I go into my custom shapes here, right, and I'm like, okay, I want to use one of these outlines, and I want the outline to be, you know, like puffy. Right, so if I go in and I pick one of these, let's say I want to do the dog bone, okay? So if I bring this in and I'm going to go ahead and just make it a steel outline stitch, right? So this is going to create this satin stitch that's going to go all the way around my shape. There's a couple of spots where I know that there's going to be a not quite as ideal cutting of the foam, and that's right here where this corner is lapped instead of like it kind of like splits, right? So if I go and I change my corner type, if I change my corner style from mitered to lapped, look what it does. Not lapped, auto turn. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. You see how the satin stitch now comes and cuts this perfectly? I don't know why I chose lapped. I knew that was wrong. But anyway, the auto turn. So you go into, it's the second tab on properties. It is underlay. No, it's corner type. I'm sorry. So it's from the second tab is corner. You change the corner style from mitered, which is the default, and we'll look at what that looks like again. Okay, so this is creating this part's fine where it comes to this taper, but right here where we get a square edge and a square edge, that's not going to cut as good. It would still work, but what's going to look the best is auto turn. Boom, look at that. Now, that's not going to be the case for every shape. You know, auto turn might do it wrong. But so I would do that, and then I would also change my density. To see the steel density, the default is 0.5, which is not dense enough. I would probably nudge that down to 0.3 and just see where that takes me. See how much denser that is. You want it to be that dense so it provides coverage of the foam, and also it cuts out the foam nicely. So these outline type shapes are usually pretty easy because you're not going to have a square end, because all of these custom shapes are filled. So basically what we're doing here is we're getting puffy foam so this outline is raised and 3D, okay? And we could put something else in the middle if we wanted to. So like I could have, before it goes and does the foam here, I could have this be some kind of decorative fill. So if I had 2 of these, say, and I, let me just hit it, for some reason my right, there we go, copy and paste, so there's 2 of them, and I changed the first one to be, say, a motif fill, right? So I've got this kind of interesting looking background fill, and then on top of it we're going to put the foam to give it like that 3D look. that can be a cool thing. What we wouldn't be able to do with something that is a shape this size is we wouldn't be able to fill this thing in and make the whole thing a 3D puffed bone, because the satin stitch would be way too wide here. Like that's, geez, how big is this? Let's see. We'll use my ruler. It's 0.8 inches, which is way too wide. The maximum you can do a satin stitch is around 10 millimeters, and this is more than twice that. So that you wouldn't be able to make this whole thing filled in as puffy foam, but you can make it like a 3D raised border like that, and that looks cool and fun. So you can do that with any closed shape pretty much, and all of the shapes that are built into the custom shapes here. So it could be anything. I could go in and say, okay, I want this fleur-de-lis here, right? I want to make that a steel stitch, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. These are tapered nicely, but we do have a lot of these mitered corners where it's not, I mean, it would probably work pretty good. Let's see what it looks like if we change the corner style to auto turn. These might be too sharp a corner, and it might not look right. Let's see. Yeah, this is kind of too long here. So this one, we just are going to have to use the mitered, I think. And actually, I think that they're all going to be okay. If we didn't have these really sharp points here, see, this is going to come to a nice taper, and it cuts perfectly all the way to that. I think it's probably still going to look good. Some of these would look better, but you don't get to pick like per corner what the style is. It just doesn't give you that option. So we would leave it the way that it is. Go in and set our density to be a little bit tighter, right? And you can set your width to be wherever you want it. You actually, with foam, you want your width to be kind of wider than you want the design to actually be when you sew it out, because it's gonna, some of that is gonna kind of like puff out. So you want to kind of build in some pull compensation so that there's enough thread to fit around the amount of foam that you have. But all right, let's talk about what it takes to actually digitize our own letter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring in a font from a TrueType font. Okay, so this is a font that I downloaded from DaFont. So you can go to dafont.com and download this. It's called the Bold font. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and click on our text tool up here, and then click on Import TTF Artwork. Okay, and then from there, I'm going to hit Select. I'm going to pick one of these TrueType fonts that's on my computer. So it was called the Bold font. When you look at it in the list, for some reason it's just called the font, but it's called the Bold font. So the font, Bold. We say OK. And I'm just going to start with a single letter. We'll do a capital letter M, M for Meadow. And let's see what we can do with this shape. Now, first of all, we want to have this shape sliced up into pieces. Okay, and what I want is shapes to come to a taper. So what I'm thinking of is having this cut all right across here, and then this cut right across here. Okay, and then this can be tapered here all the way to here, and this tapered here to here, right? That's going to give us nice cutting all the way along. Kind of rather than, I mean, I guess it's a matter of personal preference, really, how you like the letter to look. But let me show you what my process is going to be. I'm going to go and have my object selected and go up to, in the tool right under the shape tool is the slice tool. We're going to left click on just the regular first slice tool, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to put in a slice from here to here, and that's going to cut this shape right across there and then leave me with two finished shapes there. And when you use this tool, you need to be fairly zoomed in. I don't know why, but if you're too zoomed out, then the cut line doesn't show up. So we want to start right on this corner here where the blue dot is, that node. I'm going to left click and then go down to the next node that I want to slice to, try to get it right in the middle, and left click again. Once you've done that, you're going to right click with your right mouse button. That cuts this open and gives us two separate closed shapes. That gives us this shape here, which if we look, that is a completely closed shape, and this one, that leaves me with a completely closed shape there, okay? And then I'm going to slice here to here. So we're going to go back and use this tool again, the slice tool. And again, I'm going to click right in the middle of this node, and then right into the middle of this node, okay? And then you right click, and that should slice it. If the slice doesn't happen, zoom in a little bit more, okay? I don't know why, but that's that's what you have to do. And then we're going to go in, and I'm going to go and slice this one from here to here, and then right mouse click. See, that time it didn't take. It's so infuriating when that doesn't happen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, pan up a little bit, and I'm going to left click here, right click to generate the slice, and there it is. Okay, so why do I have to do it that way? I don't know. Why do I have to zoom in? I don't know. You just do, and that's how it is. So now, how are we going to draw in those spaces that I showed you where we're going to actually cut out the shape? Well, I'm going to do it in kind of a weird way. So just follow along with me. I'm going to grab this first shape here, right? Open up my shape tool. I'm going to use the shortcut to it here, okay, at the bottom of my selection box. And I'm going to split this line off of this shape. All right, so watch this. I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to do split line. And I did that right on this node. Then I'm going to go to this node, right click it, choose split line. Okay, now I can left click on this line, which selects it. Okay, and then I'm going to build in another part of this shape. Now this is going to look weird, just trust me on this. We're going to go to our shape tool, the third one down on the toolbar here on the left, hit the little arrow, and the third option, add outline. All right, and we are just going to go a little ways up the shape here. We're going to left click and then go across and left click again. Okay, so I've created two nodes, right click. So that was two right clicks. Now, if I messed up a little bit, I can move my point in because I want this point, this node, to be right on that line. But what this now creates is a separate shape. Even though it's not closed, I can treat it like a closed shape. All right. So if you want to see what that looks like now, I wouldn't, if I was doing this, I wouldn't go and digitize this. I would go and do all the rest of the ones that I need. But just to show you what I mean by this, check this out. I can go and choose my satin tool down here, and I can directly put in the inclinations where the closed ends would be, and then right click, and I've got my my closed satin shape in there. Okay, that way I don't have to mess with trying to redraw a perfect rectangle that fits perfectly underneath the original shape. It's the exact same size, width-wise as the top stitch is going to be. So that's super cool. And I discovered that the way that I discovered that that's how they're doing that in the built-in letters, I'm going to just go ahead and show you, make a new page here. This is something that really is helpful if you want to get into the weeds of how letters are digitized. If we go in and create a lettering object in here, and I'm going to leave this 3D Puff capital in here, and I'm going to bring in a capital letter M just so that we're working on the same shape here. Okay, if I take this lettering object that was built into my software, and I right click it, I have the option, I need to get out of the lettering tool by choosing the select tool. Then I can right click the object and choose break up text. Okay, this is going to allow me to see how any of the shapes that make up this object were digitized. And if I go in, I can see, okay, let's grab this satin path here and then use the shape tool. We can see that's how this is done. There's no actual closed shape here. They did it just like I just did, where the shape is actually made of these inclinations. Now they did it where they made like a trapezoid shape, which I forgot to do that. So I'm glad that we did this. So I can actually go back in, and that's so that we don't have any chance of this top stitch kind of being not far enough over to cover this stitch here. So I forgot that we wanted to actually have the top one be inset a little bit. So let me go back in here, and I'm going to undo, right? And I'm just going to start this over again. So I grab this shape, I'm going to right click one of the nodes and choose split line, right click the other node and choose split line, select the shape, which is just this one small bit of line. And then I'm going to use the add outline tool, and I'm going to do there and there. This time I'm off of the outline. Okay, now we're going to right click to generate, and I would move on to the next one at this point to digitize it, but I'm going to go ahead and digitize it as we go here. Actually, no, what am I saying? I would digitize it as I go. I'm going to do it the way that I would. I don't know what's wrong with my brain today, guys. But anyway, yeah, this is right. I'm going to digitize it as I go. So the first thing we're going to do is make this into a satin stitch there and there. Groovy, right click. Now it's going to have me set my start and stop point. So I'm going to have this stop here. Doesn't really matter where it starts. Okay, and then I'm going to travel from here to where I want my next one to be, which is up here. So my traveling stitch. So traveling stitch means that we're going to, instead of having the machine stop and cut here, we're going to put in a run stitch that's going to take the needle up to the next part. So the next part I want to do is this part up here. So what I'm going to do is use the digitizing tools up here and choose run stitch, and I'm just going to go from where I set that stop point and bring it right up here to about where, you know, the next part of the design is. And then we are going to go back to our shape tool. Let's see, probably the easiest way is to select, I'm going to select the one that I want to edit in the sequence view here. That's this one. And then I'll grab my shape tool back, and I'm going to split it from here. Right click, split line, right click, split line. Okay, this one is selected. I use the add outline, and we're going to go in and bring those in like that so that I end up with a trapezoid shape. Right click twice, hit the select tool, then use the satin tool down here, put in my inclinations for the stitch direction. We'll set my start point to be here. We'll set my, oh wait, no, you know what? I just messed up where my inclination was, because this, you have to right click before you can set your inclination, or I'm sorry, before you can set your start stop point. So I'm going to right click, boom. Now I can grab my start point and move it, and I'm going to move my stop point to be basically the same spot. Then we're going to use the run stitch tool and go back down to here. I see I've got a little rogue stitch to take care of. We'll take care of that last. But I'm going to run this down here. And then same thing at the bottom. So let's see, that's this shape. Shape tool, break this off, boom. Split line, and once again, split line. Okay, now we can see that we're going to have to combine these two when we get to that, but we're not going to worry about that now. So here, and then we're going to add in points there and there. Right click twice, use my select tool, hit the satin tool, there and there. Right click, I'm going to move my start point to be here. I'll move my stop point to be, it doesn't really matter where, here. And we'll just remember to make our travel stitch go from there. We're going to go up to this next corner here. So now we're going to travel with the run stitch from here up to here. Okay, right click to generate that. And now we grab our next shape. This guy doesn't need any trimmings. Okay, there's no square edge against the foam on this one. So we go to this one and shape tool. We're going to split this. We're going to split this. For some reason it didn't take, so I'm going to go back and do it again. Split line. There it went. Okay, there we go. Sometimes you just didn't quite click where you thought you did, and you just have to do it again. So if you have to do that, you know, don't worry about it. Happens to everybody. And then put in my points for the trapezoid shape. That's one whole shape. Go in, select it, and use the satin stitch tool. I'm going to right click, which allows me to move my start and my stop points, which I'll just put in the same spot. And again, we've got a rogue stitch up here. Again, we'll be able to get rid of that using our stitch editing tools, which we'll do last. Now we're going to travel, use the run stitch to travel from the stop point to the next start point. And one last time, we go and get our shape. We're going to split this off. So we split this line. We split this line. Okay, we select this one. And go back up here and put in those points. Oops, didn't like that one. Backspace deletes a node that you put in accidentally. Go back and select it. Shape, or satin. Draw those in, right click, and there we go. All right, now I should have been doing this all along, but I want for these satin paths, I'm holding down the control key to select them, I want these all to be density 0.4. Okay, and then if I want to go back and get rid of where this kind of threw a stitch out where I wouldn't have put it, we can actually go in and use the stitch edit tool to grab any rogue stitches like this. Just grab it and tuck it under. Grab it and tuck it back in here. Okay, so anytime the algorithm throws a stitch where you don't want it, you can always move it using the stitch edit tool. It's an invaluable tool. Okay, so now let's think about the order that we want these things to sew out. So all of this pathing that we did needs to go down before anything else happens. Okay, so we can see that in my sequence view, this piece of artwork is out of sequence and needs to be moved down. And I'm just going to left click and drag it until it's down here. So the next things that are going to happen are this. This is in the wrong order. We actually want this to go next. We want to go here, 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 here. And if we look, we've actually got some travel stitches in here that are out of order. So this first travel stitch needs to be after the first satin path. The second travel stitch needs to be after the second satin path, right? And then the next run stitch, I'm ignoring the artwork, after the third satin path, and then after the fourth satin path. Okay, now the bits of artwork, these are actually this line, this line, this line, this line. So if we go in and look at it, that's a run stitch. That's the right side of our next shape. And let's see, probably this is the other side. Yep. So we can grab those two, and then we can right click and combine. Now they are one shape, and then we got to find the other bits of artwork there and there. We're going to combine those. Right click and combine. So those now are shapes that can be digitized. So let's see. Let's make sure that they're all going in the right order. So we need this to happen after that, and then this is going to be last. Okay, so I think I've got it in the right order. We've got the leftmost section of the M, next, next, next. Okay, so I've got them in the right order. Now we're going to go ahead and apply satin stitches to these shapes that are left. So we're going to use the satin tool, and I'm going to put one inclination right across the bottom, and then one across the top here, maybe one across the middle here. And I want this to taper so that it cuts all the way to the end. I'm going to right click, and then my start point is wherever I want. Although actually, you know what I should do is I should have traveled back to here, and I didn't. So let's actually have it start here. Yeah, that's fine. We'll have it stop up at the top. That's fine too. All right, so that looks fine. And let's set our density to 0.3. All right, I'm going to turn off 3D so we can see what's going on a little easier. Okay, and then I'm going to go and... This is not ideal because we're going to have to change the order, but I'm going to use my run tool to travel back down to where that start point was. And then I'm going to move this run so that it is the last thing that happens, or the first thing that happens after it sews out this guy. So that way it makes more sense for it to travel like that, and then see it travels back over here. That way we don't have to have the machine stop and trim. Okay, so all right, so next is this shape here. So we're going to use our satin tool, and I'm going to put in the inclinations there and there, and I think that's going to be just fine. I'm going to right click it, set my start point to be over here where the stop point was on the last one, and we'll have this stop somewhere like here. Right click to generate that. Next shape is this shape, and we're going to go in and let's see, I think I'm going to have it taper at both sides like this, and maybe put one in right in the middle. And right click, put the start point here and the stop point, some say there. Right click that. Okay. And then, oh, you know what? I forgot to set the density on this last one. I'll set that to 0.3. And we'll set this one to 0.3. Okay. And then our last shape, we're going to use the satin tool like this and like this. Right click, move the start point, and the stop point doesn't really matter because it's the last element. So we right click that. Set this density to 0.3. And then the other thing I want to do for these top stitches is I want to add in a little bit of pull compensation to fatten it up a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab these last 4 satin paths. I'm going to hold down the control key and select each one so that I get just these 4 satin paths. I'm going to go to the underlay button, and under absolute pull comp type, I'm going to set this to 0.3 and just hit apply. That'll fatten these up, and you see how now there's not going to be gaps between them. Okay, because if there's a gap, it doesn't look that great in the foam. But this letter we could now sew out on Puffy foam with this font that was a font of our choosing. Okay, so there's tons of fonts out there that you can download from dafont.com, and you know, you can, any of them that are kind of like a blocky font like this, you can make them work for Puffy foam in this way that I just showed you. So that's it. Now in the class, we're going to actually sew out some of these designs and watch what happens when you sew it out. But as far as the video how-to portion, this is it. So hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.